Hey y'all, today we will be going over our first sleeve, which is the leg of mutton sleeve. For this video, I will be using a yard of fabric, half a yard of interfacing, one zipper that's 6 to 7 inches, a basic sleeve pattern, pins, an iron, sewing machine, needle and thread, pattern paper or craft paper, a ruler, marker, a fabric marker, and a seam ripper. Before we get started, let's go over a few other materials we can use. So one option is stiff crinoline, which is what I use to get this look. Crinoline is great for adding structure and it's lightweight. The next option will be horsehair fabric, and that fabric is a lot stiffer and you can use it to get more structure like this look. And then the last thing, which is what we're using in the video, is Fusible Interfacing, which I use to achieve this look. So whatever look you're going for based off of these videos, as you can see, it's a slight difference, but the look you're going for is up to you. Stiff crinoline would have to be my favorite out of these options just because it's so lightweight, but here are all the options and all the prices for these fabrics. You can purchase them at Rosa Fabrics, which has the horsehair fabric, or Fine Fabrics, which has the stiff crinoline, and of course Joanns and Hobby Lobby has your Fusible Interfacing. Here is Rosa Fabrics Instagram in case you are interested in purchasing their horsehair fabric. Okay, so now we can finally get started. So first you want to get out your craft paper or your pattern paper. I got my craft paper from Home Depot. It was $13. It's a yard long and a yard wide and 140 feet long, so just in case you're interested, you can get some from there. But you want to take your basic sleeve pattern, and if you don't have a basic sleeve pattern, I'll have one reference at the bottom of the video. But yes, take your basic sleeve pattern, place it on your paper, and then just trace the sleeve onto your pattern paper. Before you cut out your pattern piece, make sure that the wrist part of your pattern is a good enough length. We want the end of our sleeve to be very fitted, so just keep that in mind, and if you need to, take some measuring tape and measure your wrist to double check. But yeah, once that's taken care of, you can cut out your sleeve. Once you cut out your pattern, you want to grab your ruler and your marker, and you're going to mark 6 inches down on both sides of the edge of your pattern, or on the edge of your sleeve. Now if you want your sleeve to be fuller, you are going to extend the length. So if you want the puff of your sleeve to be bigger, you could go down to 8 inches, 9 inches, etc. But now you want to find the center point of your sleeve, so I'm folding it up now to find the center of my sleeve. And then once you find the center, you want to take your marker and mark the top of that fold, and then you're going to grab your ruler, and you're also going to mark 6 inches down through the center of your sleeve. But this time you'll create a whole line instead of just adding little dots. Alright, so I know it's kind of hard to see, but now we're going to mark our half point. So we're marking the half point between the top of our sleeve edge and that 6-inch marking we made. So half of that is 3 inches, so you're basically creating a 3-inch mark on both sides, and then you're just going to connect the dots. So we're connecting the points that we made on the side to the end of our 6-inch line. So you should have 2 markings coming from both sides. And like I said, I know this is a bad angle, but you'll start to see it better like what I'm doing. And then once you have all your lines drawn, this is what you should have. So now we are going to cut out our sleeve. So you want to start by cutting from the top, so our 6-inch line, and just follow down those lines that we drew. Now when you get to the edge, you want to make sure you stop. You don't want to go too far and then end up cutting that off. That's not what we want. We want to keep everything connected, but us cutting down these lines will allow us to basically shape our sleeve. So you want to just get very, very close to the edge without cutting off the pattern completely. So this is basically how it should look now. Now go ahead and take everything off the table, grab your fabric, and we are about to start cutting out our pattern. Now I will be using a Sharpie for this part to finish creating our sleeve pattern, but I'm only doing that just so y'all can see it well. But make sure you are using a fabric marker for this part. So grab the sleeve and lay it on the fabric, and what we're going to do is basically adjust how wide we want the sleeve to be. So now you want to make sure that there's an even amount of fullness on both sides. I'm trying to lay the fabric down just so it's easy for y'all to see what I'm doing. So just give me a second. Okay, so now start pinning down the edges of your sleeve pattern. And then once you do that, you can start trying to figure out what you want to do with the top, how you want it to lay. So just spread it out the preferred wideness that you would like, and then you will just pin along the outside of the pattern. It's no need to pin along the inside. So then once you do that, you can grab your marker, and then you want to just trace along the edge of our pattern until we get to the other end. Leave the top alone, don't trace anything up there yet. But once you do that, you can grab your pins, or remove your pins and remove everything you have on top of the pattern, and then put the pattern to the side. We are now done with that piece, and we're going to finish creating our pattern on our fabric. So now I'm going to continue the curve at the top of our sleeve. So this part is going to be up to you. Just make sure you keep the fullness even, like I mentioned earlier. You don't want one side to be bigger than the other, but you're basically just going to create a curve with your marker at the top, connecting those 2 points. So this is basically what you should have once it's done. And then now you can start cutting out your pattern piece. Once you finish cutting out your sleeve, you want to use this to also cut out your interfacing. So you'll see in a little bit that I missed this part of the video, but you're basically just going to take your sleeve, lay it on your interfacing, and we're only going to interface the top half of the sleeve. So basically where the curve starts to form. Another way to look at it is the 6-inch mark that we made earlier. Those 2 points, that's what we're interfacing. So from that point on up. But that's how your sleeve should look now. Here's a better view. And then this is how it will look once the sleeve is interfaced. So as you can see, I only have the top half of our sleeve interface, because we only need the stiffness in the top, we only need the structure in the top. So we're only interfacing the top half of our sleeve. It's nothing wrong with interfacing the whole thing, but that's just how I prefer to do mine. Now you want to fold your sleeve and basically line up the bottom of the sleeve, and we're going to mark the place for our zipper. So my zipper is, I want to say, like 6 inches long, so I'm marking 5.5 inches at the bottom of the sleeve, so that way I can know this is where my zipper will go. So now you want to pin the whole sleeve together once you put your markings. And then we are going to base stitch the bottom of the sleeve. And then we are going to do our regular stitch on the top half of the sleeve. So here's a better example. So from this point to this point, we'll base stitch, and from the rest on up, we'll do our regular stitch. So don't start, if you started on the end where the base stitch is, do not do a lock stitch. But you'll do a lock stitch once you get ready to switch over to the end of the sleeve. I hope that makes sense. Alright, so now you'll just cut your strings, and then we'll go and press everything out. So when you press out the sleeve, you don't want to press down too hard. Focus just on getting some steam there to open up that seam. and we'll be using that as a guide once we get ready to put in our zipper. Okay, so now that's taken care of. Now you want to grab your seam ripper, and we're just going to seam rip the part that we base stitch, basically where our zipper will be going. So now I go back to the iron, and how I like to install my zippers is by ironing out the curve. I feel like it makes it easier to make the zipper more invisible. So you see this part there, how it's rolled up, we're basically going to flatten that out. So you don't want to press down too hard because of course our zipper is plastic, but you want to really just get over it and make sure you can flatten it out. I prefer putting my heat setting on like a medium heat setting just so it doesn't get too hot, but you'll see the difference in a second that it makes. So now you can see it's like very flat opposed to it being rolled up, and that will make it easier for me to sew it in. So when we get ready to sew our zipper on, you want to pin the zipper to the end of our sleeve like so. And then once it's pinned in, when we get ready to sew this, you want to make sure that you sew down the crease that we just ironed out. So right where my finger is, that's where we are focused on sewing. And then make sure you do your lock stitch at the beginning of sewing your zipper. And also when pinning, make sure you have the teeth faced away from the edge of the fabric. This is what you should have so far, and then you want to go and pin the other side in and then sew that part, the other half of the zipper in. Alright, so I'm doing just a little bit more sewing on one side just because I didn't get it in all the way. And then once that's done, we can move to the next part. The last thing that we need to do to our zipper is basically just close up the bottom of it. So see where I'm pinching? We're going to add a pin there and then add another pin at the end of the gap, and we're just going to sew that shut completely. It's easier to sew it shut once you zip up the zipper just a little bit, so if you need to do that, then do that. But once you sew that last piece, then our zipper is in and we're good to go. So now we are at the gathering part of our sleeve. So you want to grab your needle and thread, and you're basically going to sew from 4 inches away from the edge of the sleeve to the other end of the sleeve, and you're going to stop 4 inches from that end as well. So you're just going to continue to go around. You can also do your gathering stitch on your machine. Some people have a gathering foot, or you can do a base stitch, which is basically your largest stitch on your machine, and you can use that to gather as well. So now that I've finished my stitch, I'm going to just continue to pull the string, and while I'm pulling my thread, I'm pushing the fabric the opposite direction, and that's making the fabric our sleeve start to gather. Once you finish gathering your sleeve, you basically just want to tie a knot, and then the top of our sleeve is done. To finish off our sleeve, we were basically just going to sew over the gathering we just did. So you want to be careful and just gently guide the gathering through the machine and sew it at 1/4 of an inch. And so you just want to push that through slowly. Make sure the gathering is still intact. Alright, so then when you get to the end, you want to do a lock stitch and then cut off your threads, and there you go. Our sleeve is now complete. That is all for this video. Make sure you check out video 2 and 3 as well, and thank you for watching.